In today's show, the Blazers fill out their last two-way spot with an elite dunker, plus season previews for Jabari Walker and Kris Murray. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, so make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking Taze Moore. The Blazers filled their final two-way spot with a familiar face who has some crazy dunk highlights that you could check out if you're not familiar with them yet. Plus, we'll continue our season preview series talking Jabari Walker and Kris Murray. Got a fun show for you. You're listening to Tuesday, September 17th episode, and that means we're back 5 days a week wherever you get podcasts. I know I mentioned at the top of the show, but I want to remind you if you are just tapping back into the season, as we get closer, a couple weeks away from a media day and training camp, all popping off. We're back 5 days a week. Tell your friends, welcome to the program. Let's do it. Let's talk Taze Moore to kick this bad boy off. So Taze Moore, who is going to celebrate his 26th birthday this week. Happy birthday a little bit early. Signs a two-way contract with the Portland Trailblazers. You are either one of two people. You were saying, who the hell is Taze Moore? Or you're an absolute sicko. And these are my listeners, y'all. And you're saying, Taze Moore's back. Let's go. I guess there's like a third option where you are both familiar with Taze Moore and not excited. But I'm going to guess if you knew Taze quickly by name, you were at least relatively excited. Here's who he is in case you didn't know. This guy played Cal State Fullerton, and then at Houston, is transferred to Houston for his final collegiate season, and went undrafted, hanging out in the G League to try to find a way. And then in January of this year, January of 2024, the Blazers traded a couple draft picks to the Texas Legends in order to acquire Taze Moore's G League rights so he could become a member of the Rip City Remix. Now, I don't know how G League trades work. To me, it is probably outside of my purview and probably will remain there for until I really get deep into it. Shout out to my guy Tony East of Locked On Pacers. Tony East knows the G League. He knows the Mad Ants. I'm hoping to one day know the Mad Ants like Tony knows, or know the Remix like Tony knows the Mad Ants. But I do know the Blazers traded 2 draft picks for Taze Moore and then 9 days later signed him to a two-way contract. To me, that looks like an organizational investment. To me, that looks like a guy that they had scouted and knew, and they said, we want to get him out of the Texas Legends program and into our program. And also, like, we need some guard help. We could just use some emergency guard help. So let's add a 6'5" athlete to our G League program, and then we'll immediately call him up. So the Blazers call up Taze Moore on January 20th. He makes his NBA debut on the 21st. And gets some minutes against the blowout minutes against the Lakers at the end of a loss on January 21st. His first NBA points come on a dunk, and the dude is a dunker, so it was fitting for it. During that first 10-day contract, he appeared in 3 total games and then heads back down. And then he signed another 10-day contract at the very end of the season and played in the season finale against the Kings. In that game, he played 30 minutes, 12 points, 8 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, 5 of 14 shooting. Like, he played like starter minutes, and he wasn't exactly good in the Blazers' loss. But 12, 8, and 4 with a couple steals is, if nothing else, productive in real minutes. But he mostly was a G leaguer, right? Like the Blazers just signed him to two-way deals. He was not on a two-way contract last season, but he was mostly a G leaguer, right? He's a minor league player. He got a four total games in the NBA, and like, I'm not going to do his per game averages because he's playing garbage minutes his first 3 games, playing mop-up minutes. But in the G League, he put up numbers. 22 G League games across all G League competitions last year, 15.6 points, 5.1 boards, 7.2 assists, a steal and a half, 1.4 steals, 49.8% from the floor, 35.1% from 3, 73% from the free throw line. Like, that's productive. There's numbers to be had in the G League. Like, there's guys, Tim Frazier was like, I think he had 4 triple doubles in the G League way back when. Like and then he was like a fringe NBA point guard for a while. But so it's like, I don't think just like the raw counting stats, but there are guys who go down in the G League and are not as productive as 12, 5, and 7 and shoot 35% from 3. Moore is, if nothing else, looks good in the box score. Mostly what I know about him is that he's an awesome dunker. Like, he's a 6'5" guard. He's probably more point guardy than small forward, but he might just be like a power wing in the NBA. He's just not that big. He's like the size he is. The shooting would probably be a question mark for him, and how much like wiggle does he have off the bounce if he can make it stick in the league. But like, when you pull up Taze Moore highlights, when you say like, what does this guy do? He dunks. He has crazy dunks, crazy windmills, crazy burst, really powerful dunks. Like, he is, he's a dude who fills up the box score doing a little bit of everything. He's obviously an impactful defender with his athleticism in terms of playmaking. I can't say I've watched him enough in the G League to say if he's good actually on defense, but the steal rates that he had in at the G League level suggests that he's like at least an active defensive playmaker, and like is a elite athlete, is a high level athlete. That kind of checks the box that the Blazers have for like everyone else on the roster. All of their guys that they're like draft for star potential, or maybe not that, but like they like athletes, they like defensive activity. That's certainly a player type. And so they signed Taze Moore, the team announced last week, to the final 2-way contract. So that's spoken for. Like, the Blazers roster now, and we'll talk about this more as we get into training camp, is like, they have 15 guys under contract plus Devontae Graham, who's on coming in on a training camp deal, who's like probably outside chance to make the roster. He's definitely on the outside looking in from my perspective. And they got the 2-way spot spoken for with Justin Minaya, Bryce McGowens, and now Taze Moore. Moore comes back, and what this is just what the Blazers have done this summer is they have said, let's just do it again. And Moore fits that, right? They're returning 13 of their 15 players from the roster last season. They're returning Justin Minaya on a 2-way contract, and another one of the 2-way spots is added by, is filled by Taze Moore, who signed two 10-day deals and played in the team's G League affiliates. They basically, like, the new faces, like, all told, including the 3 2-way spots, like the new spaces across 18 roster spots. It's 3 guys. It's Donovan Kling and Denny Avdia and Bryce McGowens, the third 2-way player. It's fine. I don't think you should ever get worked up about a 2-way spot. I will say it is curious that all of the 2-way guys for the Blazers are like 6'5" combo E guards. Like not quite. Minaya is definitely like a smaller 2-3 type. McGowens is like, he's probably that, although he has some on-ball stuff with his like scoring ability, but he's not much of a passer. And like Moore, I think, is more of a 1 than a 3, but again, it's like more of like a power wing. Like, that's kind of the spot they seem to be searching for with those 2-way roles. They're not looking for like specific depth. They don't need more depth at center. They could probably use a little more depth at power forward, but they don't really need that either necessarily with the way the roster works. I think they could probably use like an emergency point guard, but maybe they just view Taze Moore as an emergency point guard. Maybe that's how they view him. Great, check the box. And they certainly know more than me about how what Moore could do in a pinch. If you average 7 dimes in the G League, you certainly have some playmaking skills, but it's a little bit different than playing point guard in the NBA, to be certain. I wouldn't get worked up about this. Like, if Moore is not like, if adding a 26-year-old to a 2-way spot doesn't get you excited, here's the thing. 2-way spots are a great opportunity for young players, but nothing's guaranteed. It doesn't count against the salary cap, and any time you can be waived. So they can just say like, meh, didn't work out, see ya. Like, literally that quickly, and send him back. And, I believe they'll have his G League rights still, the way I understand it. So he'd just be like back as a minor league player and not this like in-betweener spots. If nothing else, they added a player who dunks the ball a lot, and he'll be outside of the rotation, so you won't have to necessarily worry about what he contributes, and he'll get some more time in the G League to continue to fill out the box score and put up crazy dunk highlights. Okay, let's do some more of what we've been doing, and that's season previews. I want to start with Jabari Walker, and then we'll move on to Kris Murray. We're talking 2 young Blazers forwards, guys that I think are outside of the rotation, have a chance to earn their way in with solid seasons. Let's do what we do with some season previews. Join me in that second segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime, the place for last-minute tickets. What I like about Gametime is that it's clean, easy to use, and there's no fuss. It's clean and easy to use because the app looks really good. You can download the Gametime app for yourself and see the app looks really good. It's intuitive. You search for exactly the game you want. For me, it's mostly soccer. I'm going to like the Timbers and Thorns games, and search quickly, search Portland, see what's in your area. It's not just sports, it's concerts and live theater and all of that stuff. But for me, I'm looking up sports tickets, and then I toggle on the what you see is what you get all in pricing. If you go to if you click on that feature, which I really, really like, then you don't get any surprises. There's no convenience fee surprises when you get to checkout. What you see is what you get. If it says it's going to cost you $38 to go see the Timbers, it's going to cost you $38 to go see the Timbers. Plus, they got a money back guarantee. If you find cheaper seats in that same spot you're sitting in, you get 110% of your money back. They'll even pay you for doing the detective work. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use the redemption code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Game time. All right, let's shift gears a little bit and get into our season preview mode. We're doing this for every player on the roster, giving you a brief but thorough look at everybody, what they'll bring to the Blazers this season, what they did last year, best and worst case scenarios, role and expectations. We've done, I believe, 5 of these so far, and we're going to get through everybody. We're going to start here with Jabari Walker in segment number 2, and then we'll close the show talking Kris Murray. Let's get into Jabari. In Jabari's sophomore campaign, his second season in the league, he averaged 8.9 points, 7.1 boards, and 1 assist across 72 games, including 23 starts, averaging 23.6 minutes a night. Shot 46% from the floor, 29.5% from 3, and 75.4% from the free throw line. Here's my favorite Jabari stat of the season. He only got 1 DNP-CD. The games he missed because he was hurt. On the inactive list, he appeared in 72 games, so 9 of the games he missed was because he was hurt on the inactive list. He was only available one night all season long where Chauncey Billups chose not to play him. Kind of a cool little number for me. Like, some of it speaks to the Blazers' injury woes, right? They just up DeAndre Ayton's out a month, up Jeremy Grant's out for an extended period of time. They Shaedon Sharp's missing a bunch of minutes, so there's spots on the wing available for other guys to play. Like, some of it speaks to the Blazers' just sort of haphazard injury situation, but I think it also speaks to the utility of Jabari Walker. He kind of earned some fringe rotation minutes early on in his second season because of the way the roster worked. Once Rob Williams got hurt, there was even more obvious minutes for him, and he was going to play, and he played damn near every night that he was available. Literally only 1 DNP-CD all season long. That's a pretty cool little stat for Jabari Walker. So he was playing, right? But he wasn't, he was kind of on the edge, right? He was some nights playing a little bit, some nights he was getting, in the teens. He was every so often playing half the game, 24, 25 minutes, but he was inserted into the starting lineup in January. He started 13 straight games. It's like, okay, Toumani Camara's kind of out of control right now. We got to figure out kind of a way to Toumani was struggling a little bit, and I think he was maybe a combination of trying to do too much and passing up shots and making bad decisions by passing up shots. And so they said, okay, we're going to go another direction. Jabari Walker's going to play. And in those, he showed when Walker got those starter minutes, his production didn't jump crazy, right? Because he wasn't playing significantly more minutes, but he's playing a little bit more minutes. And as a starter in those 13 games in January, he averaged 9 points and 8.5 boards. But he also had 4 double-digit rebound games, including 3 double-doubles if you're into that statistical symmetry. But four double-digit rebound games in 13 games in January, it's the thing he can do, he does well. And if you put him in there, he's going to play his butt off. He has a real knack for rebounding. He just has he has a good sense. He has a physicality to go after it. He has a want to go clean the glass. And when he was playing starter minutes, you got to see like jump it up from like, okay, his per minute production is pretty impressive to like when he plays 28 minutes, dude's going to grab 12 boards because he gets after it. He was solid, but not like spectacular as a starter. And he closes out the year as kind of on that note, where there were moments when you could see Jabari Walker has grit and hustle and kind of the makeup of a role player, but the high level skills around that grit and hustle just never sort of coalesced to make him into the next thing he might be. So that's what I want to talk about, best and worst case scenarios for Jabari real quick. It's best case scenario within reason and worst case scenario without injury as we do all of these previews. The best case scenario for Jabari Walker is that the shooting takes a leap and he adds some in-between craft. From his rookie season to his sophomore season to his second season in the league, his shooting barely improved. He kind of cleaned up his shooting stroke a little bit, but he shot basically the same from three and basically the same from the free throw line. Slightly better from the three and slightly better from the free throw line, but nearly identical percentages. What changed was he was a lot better on 2-pointers. He ended up from shooting 40% from the field to 46% from the field, and largely that came from being much better on 2-pointers. And I think one of the best case scenarios for Jabari Walker is that he continues to add some craft in the sort of floater game, mid-range game. Like he's not going to take pull-up jump shots. Those just like don't exist for players like him. But to catch it on the roll or catch it in space and maybe, when he's within 6 feet, because he's not a leaper, he's not like going to finish above the rim crazy, to have a little more touch and a little more craft to have that floater game active. Those, you could consider those mid-range pull-ups, but I'm talking more like push shots and little crafty moves around the rim for a guy who's not a leaper. The shooting from three ticks up a little bit. He adds a little more craft on his 2-pointers, and he continues to do what he does very, very well, which is rebound the basketball and play hard. And then the best case scenario also includes a familiarity. With his 3rd season in the league, Jabari Walker becomes familiar with both what the Blazers want to do and more what the NBA game is going to need from him, and he continues to improve as a versatile, physical defensive player. And the best case scenario is when you head into the offseason, that Jabari Walker is a no doubt about it NBA rotation player, and he enters the first free agent summer of his career knowing that he's going to have a job somewhere. If not very clearly in Portland, the best case scenario makes it inevitable that the Blazers might be a franchise in transition, that Jabari Walker has solidified himself as an NBA rotation player, and there's no question about whether he's going to play. It's just what city he might ply his craft in. That's the best case scenario. I guess you could argue the best case scenario is that Jabari Walker is undeniable, and the Portland Trail Blazers make him part of what's next by signing him to a new contract. But I want to offer within reason. The Blazers are a full roster with some decisions to be made ahead of them, and I just want to offer that the best case scenario for Jabari Walker is that he gets paid to be an NBA player. I think for you, dear listener, you might be rooting for the best case scenario is that he gets paid to be an NBA player in Portland, Oregon. So we'll put a slight amendment on that. What's the worst case scenario for Jabari Walker? It's that he's a little bit stagnant in year 3. He's shot below 30% from 3 in each of his first 2 seasons in the league. And if he doesn't take a leap into he doesn't need to shoot 40% from 3 to be a good NBA player, but he needs to have something on offense, and that something needs to be like a slightly below average 3-point shooter or a lot of craft to make up for not being a 3-point shooter around the rim. And the worst case scenario is that he's a little bit stagnant in his offensive growth, and that his position where he's just a bit of a tweener holds him back a little bit. He is probably more like small ball 5 skilled. Like the best Jabari you see on offense is when he sets a screen and rolls into space and he gets to be a decision maker in 4-on-5 situations, because he's not like this exceptional passer, but he does read the game and plays it pretty smart. Like he's by my exceptional passer, I mean he doesn't throw like crazy passes physically. He's not like diming people up with his offhand off the dribble, but he reads the game and sees the game well quickly. But if he's not like a screener type, if he's more of a spacer as like a 3-4, which is more what he's like physically sized to be, because he's not tall and he's not like super vertical, so he's not much of a rim protector, although he's physical to be sure. It's like there's just going to be less opportunities in most offenses unless the Blazers get really creative, and God willing they will, inshallah. They'll get a lot more creative this year. Like, Jabari's going to have to be a spacer because that's the role if you're going to play on a team that employs Donovan Clingan and DeAndre Ayton. Like, you're not going to be a primary pick and roll guy very often. And I think the worst case scenario is that his sort of tweener positionality just kind of makes him a weird fit. A tough fit, a non-shooter who's not quite a 5, but is like sort of 5 in skill sets, is maybe a tough square peg round hole type of situation with this particular roster and this particular style of play. And that means that the worst case scenario, instead of having this certainty, is that Jabari Walker enters the first free agent summer of his career with uncertainty about his future. Not only where he's going to play, but what that role might look like, and if he can be certain that an NBA job is waiting for him. The league moves quickly. It is unkind and unfair, and I really like Jabari Walker as a person. I really like him as an idea of a player. Like, I love his style. He plays his butt off. You're not going to get cheated in Jabari Walker minutes because he's going to give you all that he has. But the league is... It's not even a meritocracy. It's just an opportunity-based league, and sometimes you have an opportunity, and if you seize it, then you will earn the merits. But otherwise, it can move on. And like I've said this a bunch. The back half of an NBA roster, there's probably like 3,000 dudes across the world who could play on an NBA roster, the last like 4 spots in an NBA roster. And those are 120 jobs. And then you're talking 3,000, if not more, maybe 4,000 people who could fill those last 120 jobs. It is, you either get in or they will get you out. Role and expectations for Jabari Walker. I'm going to do this quickly because I'm going a little long here, but, I think Jabari Walker's outside of the rotation to begin with, because if you think about the Blazers starting lineup, and this is just like a guess here, but I bet I'm pretty close. Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, Deni Avdija, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton. Then off the bench, Toumani Camara is a lock to play. Donovan Clingan is probably a lock to play. Matisse Thybulle is probably a lock to play, and then Scoot Henderson is a lock to play. So really you're talking about whether they do it center, and if it's not Donovan Clingan, is it Robert Williams? Like, I think he's going to leapfrog Jabari in that decision tree if he's healthy. And then it's like, basically it comes down to, does Jabari Walker play over Matisse Thybulle? And because Matisse can play twos and is a little more defensive, can play some two and is a little more defensive versatility and is just like a straight up more impactful defensive player than Jabari Walker, and Chauncey Billups has shown like a willingness to get Tease into games. I think Jabari Walker begins the season, if the Blazers go 9 deep, which has been Billups' preference, with Walker outside of the rotation, which makes the best case scenario hard to hit, because obviously people are going to get hurt and you're going to get opportunities and you're going to get your chances. You got to seize it. And Walker has to do what he did last year, is that when he gets those jobs, make it so he has to play. He had 1 DNP CD all of his second season. I wouldn't be surprised if he matches that night 1. I wouldn't be surprised if he matches it night 1. I wouldn't be surprised if he has more DNPs in his first week of his third season than he did in his second season, because the addition of Deni Avdija, the franchise investment in Donovan Clingan, the health and availability opportunity for Rob Williams. There are just dudes in front of him that weren't there before. I think Walker begins the year on the outside of the rotation, and I didn't even make mention in this sort of rundown of Duop Reith, who, like, if the Blazers go to sort of another look at center, I think Reith gets the bump before Walker because he can shoot a little bit and he's a little bit bigger. So I would assume the role for Walker is outside of the rotation to begin the season. He's got to play his way in. Okay, went a little long on Jabari. Let's close the show talking Kris Murray, best and worst case scenario, season preview, all that good stuff. Join me in the third segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel. Well, I got something a little different for you, at least for another week. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, You'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. You're going to be able to watch Blazer games on YouTube TV this year, so if you are thinking about switching, you could get involved with this little promo. All you got to do is make one $5 bet on FanDuel. You got to do it before September 22nd, but then you'll be able to watch you'll be able to get a little preview of NFL Sunday Ticket and, watch a bunch of football games from the comfort of your own home. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sports book. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still rolling through our season previews. Next up, Kris Murray. And Kris Murray's rookie season, the number 23 pick in the NBA draft, averaged 6.1 points, 3.6 boards, 1.3 assists. Played 21.7 minutes a night across 62 games, including 29 starts. Started 29 of the final 34 games. Basically, Kris was out of the rotation to begin the season. He appeared in just 15 of the first 31 games, right? Like he was a dude on the outside. Just kind of the nature of the roster. There was guys in front of him, and he just wasn't quite ready. And like Jabari Walker was clearly better than him, and so he got that opportunity. And then when Toumani Camara kind of seized that role in training camp in the beginning of the season, and he became a starter, it's like, yeah, Kris is just like, he's too deep on the depth chart. This is going to be his deal. He's going to be outside of the rotation. But he kind of works his way in the beginning of January. He plays in 13 of the 17 games in January. It's like, okay, he's now he's playing a little bit. He's appeared in at this point 28 of the first 48 games. So it's like you're basically a little more than halfway through the season, and he's playing half the time. But then injuries and opportunity and just the situation changed, and Kris Murray plays in all 34 of each of the 34 games to close the season, including 29 starts. And during that stretch, he averaged his minutes go up. He's playing a little bit more, and his averages go with it. 8.3 points, 5.1 boards, 1.9 assists. Shoots 40% from the floor, 26% from three, and 66% from the free throw line. That was pretty much in line with his full season split. So, like, obviously that's the most minutes he played, so it's going to like dominate his season line. But on the year, it's like 40% from the floor, 27% from three, 66% from the free throw line. He was more productive in terms of like when he played and early, like he was more productive late than when he played early. He was playing spot minutes and getting like, okay, you're going to play at the end of 4 minutes at the end of the game. But, his numbers are his numbers. He's a dude who shot 40% from the floor and 26% from three. And I want to talk best and worst case scenarios here for Kris. The best case scenario is that he discovers some offensive juice. The shooting is the big one because it looks like it's in his head. In Summer League, he was getting exceedingly frustrated at missing open jumpers, and he's not just missing them, he's missing crazy off the mark, wildly off the mark. Wide open threes that hit the side of the backboard. He's flirting with wedgies. He's just it looks like he's thinking about shooting and not just shooting the ball. And this is just like observational, but and then he gets mad. There was a moment in Summer League where he missed a wide open three and Donovan McClingan tried to dap him up like, good shot, way to do. And he didn't want to give Donovan McClingan a high five because he was pissed, right? It's clearly something that is upsetting Kris Murray. He is thinking about it a bunch. He wasn't like a lights out shooter at Iowa his junior season or his third season, but he shot 33% from three on like, some volume at Iowa. Like he was supposedly going to be a 3-and-D guy. And the best case scenario is that he discovers that offensive juice. It isn't just the shooting, but he doesn't have a ton of vertical pop as an athlete. So there are times when he gets to the rim and just he's a below the rim finisher and he just doesn't have enough juice to like power up through guys when he gets around the rim. He's pretty good going to his left. He's left-handed. He's pretty good going to his left, but if it's not a straight line drive where he can like really strong finish left-handed, it can be a challenge for him. And the best case scenario is that he finds that shooting, he finds the offensive juice to get himself, what can you do on offense? And he continues to be a really good defender because Kris Murray in his rookie season was a very good defensive player. Judged against other rookies, excellent. Judged against the rest of the league, darn good. Like he has some positional versatility. He can guard some different spots. He has like first the box you got to check is willingness. He has that willingness. He's interested in defending. He got some tough assignments. Didn't always nail those tough assignments, but the Blazers down the stretch of the season when he was playing all those games, they gave him big minutes. They gave him like tough assignments, like, go guard De'Aaron Fox, go guard Trae Young, go guard All-Stars, right? Like, and he was, with varying results, pretty good at it. The advanced impact numbers suggest that Kris Murray was just a straight up positive, if not like good defender, certainly above average, if not good defender. I don't think like any of the defensive metrics are like perfect catch-all stats, but I would say what my eyeballs showed me is that I thought Kris Murray was a competitive defender, and the impact stats say that he's even better than what my eyeballs say. So I'll say this: the best case scenario is that the defense continues and the offense, he figures out what he can do on offense, and instead of being a 27% three-point shooter, he's someone who can make threes, at least open ones. The best case scenario is that Kris Murray discovers his confidence and lets his offense catch up with his defense and starts to build in year 2 something that looks like the 3-and-D player that the Blazers believed they had drafted when they took him 23rd overall. The worst case scenario is that he kind of starts outside the rotation. As I mentioned, if Jabari Walker's outside the rotation to begin the season, Kris Murray is dealing with the exact same thing, although he's behind Walker almost certainly to begin with. They're not the same player because of Murray's defensive versatility, but it's relatively similar spots. You'd be asking them to play 3 and 4 type of minutes. Murray's got a little more ball handling skills, but like they're pretty similar, and Walker has been more impactful, more positively impactful. So the worst case scenario is that Kris Murray starts outside of the rotation, can't crack the rotation with the opportunities he's given until they force feed him minutes down the stretch. The worst case scenario is that he starts outside the rotation, remains outside the rotation when the team is healthy, and then when things shift in the spring, you get a whole bunch more 29 starts from Kris Murray to end the year because the Blazers are like saying, hey, we are just going to give you developmental minutes because now's the time to give them to you. Deserves got nothing to do with it, as Felicia Snoop Pearson once said. And I believe John Wayne as well. My expectations for Murray, I just don't know what he's going to be. While Walker has a little bit of pressure, right? Because he's entering this, he's entering a free agency, right? This is the end of a 3-year contract, and it's like he could easily be included in a trade because of that, and he's like, it's just the uncertainty of being drafted in the second round and like not like clearly being a thing after your first 2 seasons. This is a big year for him. Kris is a little bit different. He's a first-round pick, which means you get 2 guaranteed seasons. This will be the second one. And then you get a 1+1. So, like, the Blazers will probably right before the season starts pick up Kris Murray's 3rd-year option. So, going into this season, they haven't done it yet, but typically the timing is, like, right before the season starts for rookies. So, they'll pick up his 3rd-year option. So, he'll have a guaranteed season for the following year, and then he'll basically be playing his way into seeing if that 4th year gets guaranteed. You almost certainly guarantee it because like you draft a guy at 23, you kind of just like hope he progresses and you invest those 4 years and see what it looks like. Like Murray isn't in this, he doesn't have like a contractual pressure. What he has is just like, he didn't look very good in year 1 and he didn't look very good in summer league after his first season. And while he has some skills, he just doesn't have anything that he does well on offense right now, and it's hard to be a like intriguing, toolsy defensive player if you don't do anything on offense. Like I think this is the plight of Matisse Thybulle to some extent. Matisse has said it as much at training camp last year as like the thing that's going to keep him on the floor is the shooting because the defense is known, and I think Murray is trending towards that. What do you do on offense? Because the defense is, I don't know if it's known, I don't think it's that level yet, but it certainly was good enough in year 1 to make you feel like if he can find it on offense, that he can be an NBA player. But there's a lot of searching to do to find it. Murray, and because of his role to begin his second season where he's not going to be playing every night, obviously health's going to come up and I'm sure he'll get his opportunities like by Thanksgiving or whatever. But because of how the season is likely to start for him, he's going to have a narrow window to kind of show that he's ready in year 2. And then, and sometimes the book gets written on these guys. Murray's got tools. Jabari's got tools. It's just the Blazers are searching for answers, and these guys have an opportunity to provide those answers one way or another this season. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow's show, we're talking Jeremy Grant. Come back for that one. Tell your friends about the podcast. 5 days a week, wherever you got podcasts, free on all your platforms, including YouTube, as well as all your audio streamers. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.